Welcome back to the Survival Historian, where we dig through the ashes of the past to uncover the survival wisdom that shaped civilizations. Imagine, for a moment, a wooden ship built over 1,000 years ago, still perfectly seaworthy. How did the Vikings achieve this incredible feat when, honestly, modern wood just rots away in a few decades? The answer lies not in magic or mythology, but in the raw, practical genius of Norse shipwrights, who really understood their materials with an intimacy we're only beginning to rediscover. Join us as we uncover the astonishing secrets of their ancient wood preservation techniques, revealing the lost engineering that kept their formidable longships conquering the waves for centuries. This is survival through craftsmanship, and the Vikings were its undisputed masters. When a Viking longship cut through North Atlantic swells, it wasn't just wood and iron moving across water. It was, honestly, a calculated triumph over nature itself, a vessel that could weather months at sea, beach on hostile shores, and return home with its hull intact. These sophisticated war machines and exploration vehicles carried Norse warriors from Scandinavia to Constantinople, from Iceland to North America, spanning a maritime empire that dominated the medieval world for over 3 centuries. The true genius of the longship lived in something fundamental, the preservation of the wood that formed its bones. For the Vikings, wood preservation wasn't an afterthought. It was survival. A rotted plank in open ocean meant death by drowning. A hull compromised by shipworms could, sink an entire raiding party miles from shore. Pests, salt water, fungal decay, and the relentless assault of maritime conditions threatened every vessel that touched water. Yet through methods that seem almost impossibly simple, Viking shipwrights created vessels that could last decades with proper maintenance, some archaeological examples surviving over a millennium. The question is, how did they manage to outsmart entropy with the tools and materials of their age? The Vikings didn't have chemistry textbooks, but they possessed something more valuable: generations of accumulated knowledge about the forests surrounding them. For primary hull construction, oak reigned supreme. This wasn't arbitrary. Oak possessed natural tannic acids that resisted decay, structural density that withstood punishment from waves and weapons, and flexibility that allowed the hull to bend rather than break under stress. Viking shipwrights sought slow-growth oak from mature forests, where decades of competition for sunlight produced tight, strong grain patterns. The wood was split along its natural grain rather than sawn, a technique called riving that preserved the integrity of wood fibers and created planks that were simultaneously strong and flexible. But oak alone didn't build a longship. Ash provided the oars, combining lightness with resilience. Pine and spruce appeared in masts, chosen for their height and straightness. Every species was harvested with brutal precision. Trees were felled in winter when sap flow ceased, reducing moisture content and making the wood less attractive to insects. The timber was then seasoned, left to dry slowly over months or even years, preventing the warping and cracking that rushed construction would invite. Shipwrights walked forests searching for trees with specific characteristics: straight grain free of knots, proper diameter for needed planks, and growth patterns indicating strength. They weren't harvesting timber. They were curating a maritime arsenal from the forest itself, building their navy from the ground up with knowledge earned through countless voyages and failures. Raw wood, no matter how carefully selected, remained vulnerable. The Vikings' answer came from the pine forests themselves: tar. Not petroleum-based tar, but pine tar, a thick substance created by heating pine wood in oxygen-poor conditions, until the resin condensed into liquid gold for shipwrights. Archaeological evidence suggests the Vikings developed industrial-scale tar production facilities, massive earthen kilns that could process tons of pine wood into the hundreds of gallons required for a single longship. This tar was applied liberally across every exposed surface of the hull, creating a waterproof barrier that sealed the wood against moisture penetration, while deterring the marine organisms that would feast on submerged timber. Every plank received multiple coats, each layer absorbed into the wood grain before the next was applied. The tar penetrated deep into the cellular structure, filling microscopic channels that would otherwise wick water inward. When heated, it became more fluid, allowing even deeper penetration before cooling into a resilient, flexible coating that moved with the wood as it expanded and contracted. This flexibility proved crucial. A rigid coating would crack under the constant flexing of a hull riding Atlantic swells, but pine tar bent with the wood, maintaining its protective seal voyage after voyage. Beyond tar, animal fats and oils entered the preservation arsenal. Seal oil, fish oil, and rendered animal fat were worked into the wood, particularly where additional water repellency was needed. These oils didn't just sit on the surface, they bonded with wood fibers, creating a hydrophobic barrier at the molecular level. The Vikings understood through experience what modern chemistry confirms: wood that can't absorb water can't rot. The most ingenious application appeared in the caulking that sealed the seams between overlapping planks. Viking longships used clinker construction, where planks overlapped like scales on a fish. Between these planks went a mixture that seems crude until you understand its brilliance: animal hair or sheep's wool, thoroughly saturated with sticky pitch made from pine resin. This caulking moved with the hull, expanding when wet, compressing when dry, constantly adjusting to maintain a watertight seal. The wool fibers gave the pitch structure, preventing it from squeezing out under pressure, while the pitch created an impenetrable barrier against seawater. Every technique served as a weapon in a silent war against decay. Fungal rot, the primary destroyer of wooden vessels, requires moisture and oxygen to flourish. The tar coating denied it both, sealing out water while creating a barrier between wood and air. The oils and fats went further, actually changing the wood's chemical composition at the surface, making it inhospitable to fungal spores. The Vikings understood that prevention was infinitely easier than cure, that once rot took hold in a plank, the entire structural integrity was compromised. Shipworms and marine borers presented a different challenge. These organisms, actually mollusks rather than true worms, bored into submerged wood, creating networks of tunnels that could reduce a hull to honeycomb in a single season. The Vikings' answer was characteristically direct. Coat the wood so thoroughly with tar and pitch that the organisms couldn't penetrate to the wood beneath. The tar's chemical properties actively repelled many marine organisms, while its physical thickness denied them access. Regular maintenance, hauling the ship ashore to inspect and reapply tar where needed, kept the protective barrier intact. But preservation techniques served another purpose beyond preventing decay. The flexibility that tar and oil treatments granted to the wood proved essential to the Longship's legendary seaworthiness. A hull that could flex slightly with each wave rode the ocean rather than fighting it, distributing stress across the entire structure. The clinker construction, with its overlapping planks and flexible caulking, created what modern engineers would recognize as a composite structure. The preservation methods enhanced this effect, keeping the wood supple enough to bend without breaking, resilient enough to spring back to shape after each stress. Standing before a preserved Viking longship in a modern museum, you're really witnessing the culmination of centuries of accumulated survival knowledge. It's knowledge refined through countless voyages and, well, disasters too. You see, the Vikings succeeded where others failed because they understood a fundamental truth. The key to conquering the ocean lay not in fighting nature, but in working with it. They used materials the environment provided, applying treatments derived from the very same forests that gave them timber. Fascinating, isn't it? Archaeological discoveries continue revealing new dimensions of Viking craftsmanship. Ship burials in Norway and Denmark provide pristine examples of construction techniques, while ongoing analysis of tar residues unveils the specific recipes and application methods used. Modern materials scientists study these ancient approaches because, honestly, the Vikings solved problems we still face today. How to protect organic materials from environmental degradation using sustainable, renewable resources. As we close this chapter on Viking wood preservation, consider what their success really represents. These weren't people with advanced technology or unlimited resources. They were survivors working with what their environment provided, applying intelligence and observation to solve existential problems. Their longships dominated seas for centuries, not through superior materials, but through superior understanding of the materials they possessed. The next time you see wood rotting after just a few years of exposure, remember that 1,000 years ago, shipwrights were building vessels that lasted decades, using nothing but tree products, animal byproducts, and accumulated knowledge. The technology hasn't been lost. The wisdom hasn't vanished. It simply waits for those willing to learn from history. If this deep dive into Viking survival engineering resonated with you, hit that like button and share this with anyone fascinated by how history and practical skills intertwine. Subscribe to The Survival Historian for more explorations into the techniques that kept our ancestors alive in conditions that would break most modern people. History isn't just dates and battles, it's the accumulated wisdom of survival, and we're just getting started uncovering its secrets. Until next time, stay curious, stay resilient, and remember, every skill you learn from history is a skill that might save your life tomorrow.